The cantina was dark and smoky. Strange music played from speakers that looked like they might break at any moment. Aliens of all shapes and sizes sat at tables, drinking things that glowed in colors that had no names. The air smelled like metal and fear. Krell Vorthak sat in the corner booth just like he always did. His black scales caught the dim light, making him look like a shadow with eyes. Those eyes were yellow and bright, like small suns in the darkness. When other aliens saw those eyes, they looked away quickly. He was 7 feet tall when he stood, up. His arms were thick as tree trunks, and his hands ended in claws that could cut through steel. For 30 years, Krell had been killing people for money. Not just any people. Important people. Bad people. Sometimes good people if the price was right. Everyone in the galaxy knew his name. Parents told their children scary stories about the black assassin who came in the night. Soldiers would run away rather than fight him. Even other killers were afraid of Krell Vorthak. Tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight was supposed to be his last job. A small alien walked toward his table. This one had 4 arms and skin that looked like blue rubber. His name was Baek Hyun-woo, and he was shaking like a leaf in the wind. He had good reason to be scared. Very few people had ever sat across from Krell and lived to tell about it. "Mr. Vorthak," Hyun-woo said in a voice that squeaked like a broken door. "Thank you for meeting me." Krell said nothing. He just stared with those burning yellow eyes. Hyun-woo put a small computer pad on the table. His 4 hands were all shaking now. "The job is simple. 1 target, quick and clean." Krell picked up the pad with 1 massive claw. The screen showed a picture of a man. The man looked ordinary. Brown hair, brown eyes, not very tall. He wore simple clothes and had a kind face. A human. Krell's voice sounded like rocks being crushed together. "You want me to kill a human?" "Yes," Hyun-woo said quickly. "His name is Park Dong-min. He works on a research station called Alpha 9. Krell almost laughed. Almost. He never actually laughed anymore. Humans were the weakest race in the galaxy. Everyone knew that. They had no claws, no fangs, no poison, no natural weapons at all. They were small and soft and broke easily. Most aliens thought of humans as pets that could talk. "What did this human do?" Krell asked. "Steal someone's lunch money?" "He discovered something," Hyun-woo said. His voice got even quieter. "Something that could change everything in the galaxy. Something dangerous." Krell looked at the picture again. The human looked like he would have trouble opening a jar, let alone threatening the galaxy. But Krell had learned not to ask too many questions. Questions made jobs complicated. Complicated jobs went wrong. "The payment," Krell said. Hyun-woo showed him another screen. The number was very large. Very, very large. It was enough money to buy a small planet. It was enough money for Krell to stop killing and live like a king for the rest of his life. "Why so much for 1 human?" Krell asked. "Because it has to be done right. Because it has to be done by the best." Hyun-woo leaned forward. "Because after this, there can be no more chances." Krell stared at the money number for a long time. He had been thinking about retirement. 30 years of killing was enough for anyone. His body was getting older, even though it was still strong. His reflexes were still fast, but not as fast as they used to be. Someday, someone younger and faster would come for him. This job would let him stop before that happened. "Where is this research station?" Krell asked. "In the Kepler system. It orbits a gas giant. The station has maybe 200 people on it. Most of them are humans, but there are some other races too. Security? Light. It's a research station, not a military base. The humans who run it think they're safe because they're so far from everything." Krell nodded slowly. He had attacked military bases before. A research station would be easy, like breaking into a child's playhouse. "I want half the money now," Krell said. "Of course." Hyun-woo's fingers moved over his pad. "The transfer is complete." Krell checked his own account. The money was there. More money than he had ever seen at one time. He could already picture the beach house on Zephyria with its purple sand and 3 suns. "The human dies within 1 week," Krell said. It was not a question. Yes, and Mr. Vorthak, this must look like an accident. Or at least it must not look like an assassination. No one can know that Park Dong-min was killed on purpose. This was a little unusual, but not very unusual. Sometimes clients wanted things to look natural. Sometimes they wanted to send a message. Sometimes they just wanted to avoid attention from the Galactic Police. "It will be done," Krell said. Hyunwoo stood up quickly, all four arms moving at once as he gathered his things. "Thank you, Mr. Vorthak. This is very important work." The little alien hurried away, disappearing into the crowd of strange creatures that filled the cantina. Krell sat alone, looking at the picture of Park Dong-min. The human looked so harmless, so weak. It was almost sad to think that someone this ordinary had to die. But Krell had stopped feeling sorry for his targets a long time ago. Feeling sorry made the job harder. He finished his drink, something thick and green that burned going down, and stood up. The entire cantina got quieter when he moved. Conversations stopped. Everyone watched the black assassin walk toward the Sci. Krell's ship was docked at the far end of the station. It was called the Silent Death, and it looked like its name. The ship was black and sharp, built for speed and stealth. It had carried him to hundreds of worlds and hundreds of kills. He walked through the corridors. Other aliens pressed themselves against the walls to let him pass. A group of young Krillian warriors, big, tough fighters known for their courage, actually ran away when they saw him coming. This was the life Krell knew. Fear and respect and loneliness. After this job, he could try to be something else. Maybe he could learn to be normal. Maybe he could have friends instead of victims. The Silent Death's engines hummed to life as Krell entered the coordinates for the Kepler system. The computer told him it would take 3 days to get there, 3 days to plan how to kill one weak human. As the ship jumped into hyperspace, Krell looked at Park Dong-min's picture one more time. Something about the human's eyes bothered him. They looked intelligent. They looked like they knew things. But knowing things wouldn't help Park Dong-min when Krell came for him. Nothing ever helped Krell's targets. He was too good at what he did. In 3 days, Park Dong-min would be dead. In 1 week, Krell would be rich enough to never kill again. It should have been the perfect last job. Research Station Alpha 9 looked like a metal flower floating in space. It had 5 arms that reached out from a central hub, spinning slowly around a massive gas giant. The planet below was orange and red, with storms that could swallow whole. Moon's Krell's ship drifted toward the station like a piece of space junk. The Silent Death had special equipment that made it nearly invisible to sensors. To anyone watching, it would look like just another piece of debris floating in the void. The station was bigger than Krell had expected. Each arm was at least a mile long, and the central hub was the size of a small city. Thousands of lights twinkled in the windows, showing that people were working inside even during the night cycle. Krell had spent the 3-day journey studying everything about the station. He knew which sections housed the laboratories, where the living quarters were, and how the security systems worked. He had memorized the daily schedules of the crew and learned the layout of every corridor. The security was exactly what Hyunwoo had promised, light and simple. The humans who built the station had focused on keeping things inside safe from the vacuum of space, not keeping killers from getting in. There were sensors and cameras, but nothing that could stop someone with Krell's skills. The assassin chose an old maintenance shaft on the underside of Lab Section C. According to his information, this was where Park Dong-min worked. The shaft had been sealed years ago when they built a new one, but the seal was just a metal plate welded over the opening. Krell's claws cut through the metal like it was paper. He squeezed his large body through the opening and found himself in a narrow tunnel that smelled like rust and old air. Emergency lights showed the way deeper into the station. The tunnel connected to the main ventilation system. Krell crawled through the metal passages, following the map he had memorized. His special skin could change color, turning from black to the same gray as the metal around him. Even if someone looked directly at him, they would have trouble seeing him. After 20 minutes of crawling, Krell reached a vent that looked down into Lab Section C. Through the metal grating, he could see a long hallway with doors on both sides. Signs on the doors showed what kind of research happened in each room. Most of the signs had words Krell didn't understand. The hallway was empty except for a few maintenance robots that rolled back and forth, cleaning the floors. Their sensors were too simple to detect him. Krell carefully removed the vent grating and dropped down into the hallway. His feet made no sound on the metal floor. He had been practicing silent movement since he was a child, and now he could walk across broken glass without making a whisper. The laboratory directory on the wall showed that Park Dong-min worked in room C-47. Krell moved through the corridors like a shadow, avoiding the few security cameras by timing their rotation patterns. As he got closer to his target, Krell began to notice things about the station that seemed strange. The human crew, members he glimpsed through doorways, didn't look scared or weak. They moved with confidence, working alongside aliens who were much bigger and stronger than they were. In one room, he saw a human woman explaining something to a group of Krillian scientists. The Krillians were 8 feet tall with muscles like rocks, but they were listening to the small human-like students listening to a teacher. In another room, a human man was working with a Zephyrian engineer on some kind of complex machine. The Zephyrians people were known for being the smartest race in the galaxy, but the human was doing most of the talking while the alien took notes. This was different from what Krell had expected. The humans he had heard about were supposed to be simple and helpless. These humans looked like they belonged here, like they were important. But it didn't matter. Krell had a job to do. Room C-47 was at the end of a long corridor. Through the small window in the door, Krell could see Park Dong-min sitting at a desk working on a computer. The human was alone, just as Krell had hoped. The door was locked, but Krell's claws made short work of the simple electronic system. He slipped inside the room without making a sound and closed the door behind him. The room was full of computers and strange machines that hummed quietly. Charts and graphs covered the walls, showing information that meant nothing to Krell. All that mattered was the human sitting with his back turned, completely unaware that death had just entered his laboratory. Krell moved closer, his claws extending. One quick strike to the neck would make it look like an accident. The human would simply collapse at his desk, and when they found him in the morning, it would seem like his heart had stopped. The assassin was only 3 feet away when something impossible happened. Park Dong-min spoke without turning around. "You must be Krell Vorthak," the human said in perfect galactic standard. His voice was calm, like he was greeting an old friend. "I've been wondering when you would arrive." Krell froze. In 30 years of killing, no target had ever detected him. No one had ever known he was coming. His stealth skills were perfect, his movements silent as death itself. But this weak little human had known he was there. Park Dong-min kept working at his computer, his fingers moving across the keyboard like nothing unusual was happening. "Please, come closer. I know you're there, and we have things to discuss." Krell's mind raced. This had to be a trick. Maybe there were hidden sensors in the room. Maybe someone had warned the human. Maybe this was a trap. But Park Dong-min was still alone, still sitting with his back turned to one of the most dangerous killers in the galaxy. If this was a trap, it was a very strange one. "How did you know I was here?" Krell asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Simple pattern recognition," Park Dong-min said, still not turning around. "The station's sensors detected your ship's approach 3 hours ago. The computer analyzed your entry vector and compared it to 17 similar approaches from your previous assignments." The human finally turned in his chair to face Krell. He looked exactly like his picture. Ordinary, harmless, weak. But his eyes were different from what Krell had expected. They were smart eyes, eyes that seemed to see everything. The micro-vibrations from your movement through the ventilation system were detected by the station's structural sensors, Park Dong-min continued. The computer calculated a 94.7% probability that you would enter through service hatch 7 Alpha at 23:42 station time. Park Dong-min looked at a clock on the wall. "You're 12 seconds late, by the way. I expected you to be faster." For the first time in decades, Krell felt something he had almost forgotten. He felt confused. Nothing about this situation made sense. How could this weak human have predicted his every move? "The station knew I was coming?" Krell asked. "Of course. We've been tracking your ship since you left Omega-7. We know about your meeting with Baek Hyun-woo. We know about the contract on my life." Park Dong-min smiled, and it wasn't a scared smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something that Krell didn't. "That's impossible," Krell said. "Is it? Your ship has a unique energy signature. Your methods are well documented. Your clients often use the same communication channels. Park Dong-min stood up from his chair, moving slowly so he wouldn't seem threatening. Predicting your arrival was actually quite easy, once we had the right data. Krell felt anger starting to replace his confusion. He didn't like feeling stupid, and this human was making him feel very stupid indeed. Enough games, Krell growled. You die now. He lunged forward with all his speed. Claws extended toward Park Dong-min's throat. But somehow, the human wasn't there anymore. Park Dong-min had stepped aside at exactly the right moment, and Krell crashed into the desk instead. The human had moved with minimal effort, like he had known exactly where the attack would come from. Remarkable reflexes, Park Dong-min said, as calm as ever. Though I calculated you would be 0.3 seconds faster. The gravity differential between your homeworld and this station must be affecting your muscle response time. Krell spun around and attacked again, putting all his strength behind the strike. Again, Park Dong-min simply wasn't where the claws fell. The human had barely seemed to move, but he was always exactly where he needed to be. This is impossible, Krell panted. You're just a human. Yes, Park Dong-min agreed. I am just a human, and that, Mr. Vorthak, is exactly the point. Krell backed away from Park Dong-min, breathing hard. His claws were still extended, but for the first time in his life, they felt useless. This small human had avoided his attacks like they were moving in slow motion. What are you? Krell demanded. I told you. I'm a human scientist. Park Dong-min walked back to his desk and touched something on his computer. The lights in the room got brighter, and the walls lit up with colorful displays. But I think the better question is, what do you think humans are? Pictures appeared on the walls around them. Star charts, trade routes, population numbers, resource flows. The displays showed the entire galaxy, with thousands of worlds connected by lines of light. Most aliens think we're weak, Park Dong-min said, pointing to some of the displays. They see our small size, our lack of natural weapons, our short time in space. They think we're barely worth noticing. Krell looked at the charts, trying to understand what he was seeing. The displays were full of numbers and symbols that meant nothing to him. But look closer, Park Dong-min said. He touched the computer again, and some of the lines on the star charts began to glow brighter. Who negotiates 67% of all trade agreements between different species? The glowing lines connected hundreds of worlds. At the center of most of them was a small symbol that Krell recognized, the blue and green circle that represented Earth. Who designed the universal translation systems that let you and me talk to each other right now? Park Dong-min asked. More displays lit up, showing communication networks that connected every civilized world in the galaxy. Who solved the quantum tunnel collapse 5 years ago that would have left half the galaxy's shipping stranded in space? More charts appeared, showing shipping routes and space lanes. Again and again, the human symbol appeared at critical points, like a spider at the center of a vast web. Krell stared at the displays, feeling a cold understanding creep up his spine. You're saying humans control the galaxy? Control is the wrong word, Park Dong-min said. We don't control anything. We just help. We solve problems. We make connections between species that don't trust each other. We find solutions when everyone else is ready to fight. Park Dong-min walked to another display, this one showing military information. The Krillian Empire has the strongest army in the galaxy. The Vex Collective has the largest fleet. The Zephyrian Federation has the most advanced weapons. Then, why aren't they in charge? Krell asked. Because armies and fleets and weapons only work when you have someone to fight. But most problems in the galaxy aren't solved by fighting. They're solved by thinking. Park Dong-min tapped his temple with one finger. And humans are very, very good at thinking. The displays changed again, showing a timeline of galactic history over the past 200 years. Before humans entered space, there had been constant wars between different species. Trade was limited because no one trusted anyone else. Communication was almost impossible because every race used different languages and systems. In 200 years, we haven't conquered a single world, Park Dong-min said. We haven't fought a single war of aggression. We haven't demanded tribute or territory or slaves. Then what do you want? Krell asked. To be useful, to be needed, to be the species that others turn to when they have problems they can't solve. Park Dong-min smiled. And we've succeeded beyond our wildest dreams. New displays showed economic data, scientific research, diplomatic missions. In every category, humans were involved at levels far beyond what their small population should have allowed. Every major scientific breakthrough in the last 50 years has had human researchers involved. Every peace treaty has had human mediators. Every new trade route has been planned using human logistics systems. Krell felt his worldview cracking like an egg. Everything he thought he knew about the galaxy was wrong. But you're so weak, so small. Physically, yes, but physical strength isn't the only kind of power. Park Dong-min brought up a new display, this one showing Krell's own career. You've been the galaxy's most feared assassin for 30 years. How many of your targets were actually evil? The display showed information about every person Krell had killed. Their names, their crimes, their connections to larger criminal networks. To Krell's surprise, most of them had been genuinely bad people. 89% of your victims were criminals, corrupt officials, or threats to innocent life, Park Dong-min said. The galaxy's most feared assassin has actually been serving justice more often than evil. That's impossible, Krell said. I kill for money. I don't choose based on right and wrong. No, but your clients do. And most of your clients have been people seeking justice that they couldn't get through legal channels. The display showed a web of connections between Krell's employers over the years. Someone has been guiding your career, making sure you mostly killed people who deserve to die. Who? Us? Humans? We've been quietly feeding information to the people who hire you, helping them find you when they had legitimate grievances. Park Dong-min looked directly at Krell. We've been using you as an instrument of justice without you even knowing it. Krell felt rage building in his chest. You used me? We helped you. There's a difference. Park Dong-min brought up more information. Do you know what happened to your family on Zulatar Prime? The display showed an image that Krell recognized, the mining colony where he had been born, the place where his family had died in what the company called an industrial accident. The Tellurian Mining Consortium knew their safety systems were failing. They could have fixed them for very little money, but they decided it was cheaper to let the workers die and pay compensation to their families. Images flashed on the screen. Internal company documents, safety reports that had been ignored, executive communications about acceptable losses. 47 families lost members in that accident. Most of them were too poor or powerless to seek justice. But you, Krell, Vorthak, you found a different way. The display showed Krell's first kill, a mining executive named Vorthon Kellax. Krell remembered that night. He had been 16 years old, burning with rage and grief. He had tracked Kellax to a luxury resort on Risa Prime and killed him with his bare hands. That was justice, Park Dong-min said quietly. Rough justice, violent justice, but justice nonetheless. And that's what you've been doing ever since, even when you didn't know it. But I've killed innocent people too, Krell said. Some. Yes. And we're sorry about that. We couldn't control every aspect of your career. But we tried to minimize the damage while maximizing the good you could do. Krell stared at the displays, his mind reeling. His entire life had been shaped by forces he had never seen or understood. Why are you telling me this? Because your current client, Baek Yun-woo, isn't seeking justice. He's working for the same mining consortium that killed your family. They want me dead because I've discovered their newest scheme, using forced labor on the Outer Rim colonies. The displays showed evidence of slavery, abuse, and murder on dozens of worlds. The scale of the crimes was staggering. They've been using intermediaries like Hyun-woo to eliminate witnesses and investigators. You would have been their unwitting executioner once again. But this time we decided to intervene directly, Park Dong-min continued. This time, we decided to show you the truth. And what truth is that? Krell asked. That the strongest person in the room is usually the one who doesn't need to prove it. That real power comes from understanding, not from strength. that the galaxy's most dangerous species isn't the one with the sharpest claws or the biggest weapons. Park Dong-min gestured to all the displays around them. It's the one that makes itself indispensable, the one that others turn to for help, for solutions, for hope. Humans, Krell whispered. Humans, Park Dong-min agreed. We rule the galaxy, Mr. Vorthak. We just don't do it the way anyone else expected. Krell felt something strange happening to his thoughts. For 30 years, he had seen the galaxy as a simple place. The strong survived, the weak died, and money was the only thing that mattered. But now he was seeing patterns within patterns, connections he had never imagined. What do you want from me? He asked. We want to offer you a choice, Park Dong-min said. You can complete your contract and kill me. Hyun-woo will pay you, and you can retire to your beach house on Zephyria. Or you can help us bring down the people who really killed your family. Help us expose the Tellurian mining consortium and save thousands of slaves. Help us turn your skills toward justice, instead of just revenge. Park Dong-min touched his computer one more time. A new display appeared, showing a document with Krell's name on it. We've prepared a full pardon for all your past crimes, contingent on your cooperation in this case. We've also prepared evidence that will destroy the mining consortium forever. But the choice is yours, Krell Vorthak. You can be the galaxy's most feared assassin until someone faster kills you. Or you can be something more. Krell left Park Dong-min's laboratory with his head spinning. The human had given him a data pad with all the evidence about the mining consortium, plus a communication device to contact the humans when he made his decision. But Krell needed time to think. He walked through the corridors of Research Station Alpha 9, seeing everything with new eyes. The humans he passed looked different now. They weren't weak creatures hiding among stronger races. They were the quiet center around which everything else revolved. In the main corridor, he saw a human child named Nam So-young sitting at a table with a massive Krillian warrior. The warrior was at least 10 feet tall with arms like tree trunks, but he was asking the small girl to explain a math problem to him. She was teaching him patiently, drawing numbers on a tablet while he took careful notes. The key is to understand the pattern, So-young was saying. Once you see the pattern, the answer becomes obvious. The warrior nodded seriously. Humans are good at seeing patterns. Everyone can see patterns, the girl said. You just have to know how to look. Krell kept walking, but the conversation stayed in his mind. Patterns. That's what Park Dong-min had been showing him. Patterns of connection and influence that he had never noticed before. In another section, he found a human man named Lee Min-ho mediating a dispute between two aliens. One was a tall, thin Altarian with blue skin and 4 eyes. The other was a short, wide Denebian with thick gray hide and small tusks. Both species had been at war with each other for centuries. The mining rights to asteroid K-47 belong to whoever can extract the most ore, the Altarian was saying, his voice high and angry. No! The Denebian growled. Rights belong to whoever found it first. We found it first. Lee Min-ho sat between them, calm and patient. What if we tried a different approach? What if you worked together? Both aliens stared at him like he had suggested they grow wings and fly. Work together? The Altarian squeaked. With a Denebian? Impossible, the Denebian rumbled. Altarians are liars and thieves, and Denebians are stubborn and stupid. The Altarian shot back. Exactly, Lee Min-ho said, smiling. The Altarians are good at finding resources quickly and efficiently. The Denebians are good at building things that last. K-47 has enough ore for both your peoples, if you extract it efficiently and build proper mining equipment. He showed them a holographic display of the asteroid. Altarian surveys and Denebian construction. Split the profits 50-50. Everyone wins. The two aliens looked at the display, then at each other, then back at the human. This could work, the Altarian admitted slowly. It could work very well. The Denebian agreed. They began discussing details, their anger forgotten. Lee Min-ho sat back and watched them plan their new partnership, a small smile on his face. Krell realized he was seeing the humans' secret weapon in action. They didn't win through force or intimidation. They won by making everyone else successful. He continued exploring the station, and everywhere he looked, he saw the same pattern. Humans working with other species, solving problems, building connections. They were like a glue that held the galaxy together. But as he walked, Krell also began to notice something else. The station's computer systems were tracking him. Obviously not threateningly, but definitely watching. Cameras turned to follow him. Environmental systems adjusted as he passed. The air got a little cooler and drier, matching the atmosphere of his home world. When he reached the docking bay where his ship was supposed to be, he found a maintenance crew working on the silent. Death. Human technicians were swarming over his vessel like insects. "Excuse me," said a cheerful voice behind him. Krell turned to see a human woman in mechanic's overalls. Her name tag said Kim Yu-jin, Chief Engineer. "What are you doing to my ship?" Krell demanded. "Oh, just some routine maintenance," Yu-jin said brightly. "We noticed some wear on your engine housing and your life support system was running a little inefficiently. Nothing serious, but we thought we'd fix it while you were visiting." Krell knew his ship better than he knew his own body. There had been nothing wrong with it when he arrived. "I didn't ask for repairs. Station policy," Yu-jin explained. "All visiting vessels get a free safety inspection. We can't have ships breaking down in our space. It's dangerous for everyone." She handed him a data pad showing the repairs they were making. To most people, it would look like routine maintenance. But Krell was not most people. He could see that they had disabled his weapons systems, locked down his navigation computer, and installed several new components that he didn't recognize. "My ship will be ready when?" he asked carefully. "Oh, just a few more hours, maybe 6 or 7. We want to make sure everything is perfect." Yu-jin smiled. "Would you like us to calm you when it's ready?" Krell realized that he was trapped on the station, not imprisoned. No one had pointed a weapon at him or locked him in a cell, but his ship wasn't going anywhere until the humans decided it was ready. It was the politest kidnapping he had ever experienced. He left the docking bay and continued exploring. In the communications center, he tried to send a message to his contact network, but the station's systems politely informed him that long-range communications were temporarily down for maintenance. In the computer center, he attempted to access the Galactic Information Network, but found that certain files were unavailable due to scheduled system updates. The humans weren't stopping him from doing anything exactly. They were just making it slightly inconvenient to do anything they didn't want him to do. It was brilliant, actually. Krell had to admire their technique. He found himself in the station's main dining area, where creatures from dozens of different worlds were eating meals suited to their biology. The food smells were overwhelming. Methane-based nutrition for the silicon creatures, sulfur compounds for the rock eaters, and dozens of other combinations that would be poison to most species. But somehow, the humans had figured out how to serve everyone safely in the same space. The environmental systems kept each species comfortable without harming the others. The food preparation areas were completely isolated to prevent contamination. Even the tables and chairs adjusted automatically to accommodate different body types. A human chef named Cho Sang-woo was working behind the counter, preparing meals for a line of hungry aliens. Each order was different, each requiring specialized knowledge of alien biology and nutrition, but Sang-woo moved efficiently from one to the next, never seeming confused or overwhelmed. "How do you remember all of this?" asked a young Vex drone, accepting a container of glowing purple liquid. "Practice," Sang-woo said simply, "and databases, and lots of trial and error. We humans are good at learning new things." "But there are so many different species," the drone said. "So many different requirements." "True. But everyone has to eat. Everyone has to sleep. Everyone has to breathe. The details are different, but the needs are the same." Sang-woo handed the drone some kind of crystalline wafer. "Once you understand the basic principles, the rest is just customization." Krell got in line for food, partly because he was hungry and partly because he wanted to test the humans' preparation. When his turn came, Sang-woo looked at him for a moment, then began preparing something without being asked. "Raw Krellin meat, lightly, seasoned with thorium salt," Sang-woo said, handing him a plate. "Your species' traditional food, prepared according to the recipes from your home region on Zulatar Prime." The food was perfect. Better than perfect. It tasted exactly like the meals his mother had prepared when he was a child, before the mining. "Accident destroyed his family. How did you know?" Krell asked. We know a lot about you, Mr. Vorthak. Your food preferences, your biological needs, your psychological patterns. Sang-woo's voice was kind, not threatening. We've been studying you for a long time. Why? Because you're important. Because what you choose to do next might change the course of galactic history. Sang-woo began preparing the next order. Because we believe you're better than you think you are. Krell took his food to an empty table and ate in silence, thinking about everything he had seen and heard. The humans had been planning this encounter for months, maybe years. They had studied him, predicted his actions, prepared for every possibility, but they weren't controlling him. They were just nudging him, creating conditions where certain choices became easier than others. As he ate, his communication device chimed. A message had arrived from Baek Hyun-woo, his client. Change of plans, the message said. Kill the human immediately. Payment doubled if done within 6 hours. Krell stared at the message. Hyun-woo was getting nervous about something. The original plan had allowed for a week to complete the job. Now the client wanted it done immediately and was willing to pay extra for speed. That was usually a sign that something had gone wrong. Maybe the humans had contacted other people. Maybe the mining consortium was afraid their crimes were about to be exposed. Krell looked around the dining area at all the different species eating together peacefully. He thought about the child teaching the warrior, the mediator solving ancient conflicts, the engineer maintaining his ship, the chef feeding everyone with perfect knowledge of their needs. These humans had built something beautiful, something that worked, something that made the galaxy a better place for everyone. And Baek Hyun. Krell found himself standing outside an office marked Station Commander, Han Ji-won. He had been walking through the station for hours, thinking about his choice, when his feet had carried him here almost without his conscious decision. The door opened before he could knock. "Mr. Vorthak," said a calm voice. "Please come in." Han Ji-won was an elderly human woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She looked like she could be someone's grandmother, but when Krell looked closer, he saw something else. Her posture was perfect. Her movements were precise, and her eyes missed nothing. This was someone who had been in charge of dangerous situations for a very long time. "Please sit," she said, gesturing to a chair that had been adjusted to accommodate his large frame. The office walls were covered with pictures and displays. Some showed the research station under construction. Others showed Han Ji-won shaking hands with leaders from dozens of different worlds. But what caught Krell's attention were the personal photos. Images of human families, children playing, people laughing together. "You've been exploring our station," Han Ji-won said. "What do you think of it?" "It's impressive," Krell admitted. "But I don't understand why you're showing me all this." "Because you're about to make the most important decision of your life, and we want you to have all the information you need." Han Ji-won touched something on her desk, and the wall displays changed to show files about Krell himself. But these weren't just the basic facts that any intelligence agency might have. These files contained details about his childhood, his family, his first kill, his dreams of retirement. They even had psychological evaluations that seemed to understand him better than he understood himself. "We know about your retirement plans," Han Ji-won said gently. 30 years is a long career. You must be tired." She was right. Krell was tired in ways that went deeper than physical exhaustion. He was tired of killing, tired of being feared, tired of being alone. The beach house. On Zephyria, Han Ji-won continued, reading from one of the files. "Purple sand, 3 suns, far from civilization. You've been saving money for 15 years to buy it." "How do you know that?" Krell asked. "We know everything important about the people who matter to us. And you matter very much, Mr. Vorthak." She gestured to another display. "Do you know why you became an assassin?" "For money," Krell said automatically. "No, that's why you continued being an assassin. You became one for justice." The display showed information about Krell's first kill again, the mining executive who had let his family die. But now there were more details, context that Krell had never known. Vorthan Kellax wasn't just negligent, Han Ji-won explained. He was actively evil. He knew the mining equipment was failing, and he chose not to fix it because dead workers couldn't demand better wages. But after you killed him, something interesting happened. The mining company was forced to pay proper compensation to the families of the dead workers. Safety standards were improved, lives were saved. More displays showed the ripple effects of that first assassination. Better working conditions, stricter safety laws, fewer industrial accidents throughout the sector. Your second kill was Jektar Morvain, a slave trader on Rigel 7th. Your third was Commissioner Veltar Kess, who was selling police protection to crime syndicates. The displays showed each target and the positive changes that followed their deaths. You became an assassin for justice, Han Ji-won repeated. Then it became survival. Then it became all you knew. But you never forgot that first kill, did you? The one that mattered. She was right. Krell thought about Vorthon Kellax every time he took a new contract. That burning sense of righteous anger had never completely faded. The Tellurian mining consortium has been using you for 30 years, Han Ji-won continued. Not directly, but through intermediaries like Baek Hyun-woo. They've been pointing you at their enemies while making you think you were working for justice. And sometimes I was, Krell said. Yes, sometimes you were. They're clever that way. They mix legitimate targets with convenient ones. It makes their assassin feel good about his work while removing people who threaten their profits. Han Ji-won stood and walked to the window that looked out over the gas giant below. The same company that killed your family has been using you as their weapon. For 3 decades. How does that make you feel? Krell felt anger rising in his chest. Not the cold, professional anger he used during assassinations, but the same burning rage he had felt as a 16-year-old boy discovering his dead family. They played me, he growled. Yes, but not completely. You still chose your targets. You still refused contracts that seemed completely wrong. You still maintained some sense of honor, even in a dishonorable profession. The displays changed again, showing a detailed analysis of Krell's career choices. He had turned down more contracts than he had accepted, often for reasons he couldn't. Quite articulate at the time. We've been watching you for years, Mr. Vorthak, studying your patterns, your decisions, your moral compass. And do you know what we discovered? What? That underneath the reputation and the fear and the violence, you're still that 16-year-old boy who wanted to protect innocent people from those who would harm them. Han Ji-won returned to her desk and brought up a new file. The Tellurian mining consortium currently operates forced labor camps on 17 worlds. Their slaves include children as young as 8 years old. They work in conditions that make your family's mind look safe. Images flashed on the screens. Children with hollow eyes, workers collapsing from exhaustion, mass graves hidden in remote locations. Conservative estimates suggest they've killed over 50,000 people in the past 5 years alone, and they're planning to expand operations to 30 more worlds within the next year. Krell stared at the images, feeling sick. And Baek Hyun-woo works for them? Hyun-woo is their cleanup specialist. When investigators get too close, when witnesses need to be silenced, when problems need to disappear, they call him, and he calls you. But this time was different. This time, Park Dong-min discovered their new expansion plans. He has evidence that would shut them down permanently and free all their slaves. That's why they want him dead so urgently. Han Ji-won activated another display, this one showing a complex legal document. We've prepared a complete case against the consortium. Financial records, communication intercepts, witness testimony, physical evidence. Everything needed to convict them in Galactic Court. But we need one more thing, she continued. We need their most famous assassin to testify about how they've been using him. We need Krell Vorthak to tell the galaxy how the consortium has been manipulating killers to eliminate their enemies. Krell looked at the legal documents, trying to understand their implications. You want me to confess to my crimes? We want you to help us stop a genocide, Han Ji-won said simply. In exchange, the Galactic Council has agreed to grant you full immunity for your past actions, provided you cooperate completely with this investigation. She handed him a small device. This is a quantum communicator. Untraceable. Unhackable. When you're ready to bring them down, just press the button. Our legal team will take care of everything else. And if I refuse? Then you complete your contract, collect your payment, and retire to Zephyria. Park Dong-min dies. The consortium continues their operations, and 50,000 more people follow your family into unmarked graves. Han Ji-won's voice remained gentle, but her words hit Krell like physical blows. The choice is yours, Mr. Vorthak. You can be the Consortium's weapon one last time, or you can be the galaxy's protector one first time. Krell held the communicator in his massive hand, feeling its weight. Such a small device, but it represented a choice that would define the rest of his life. Why do you care? He asked. Why are humans willing to risk so much to stop this? Because that's what we do, Han Jiwan said. We solve problems. We protect the innocent. We build connections between people who need each other. She gestured to the pictures on her walls, images of families, children, people living peaceful lives. Every species in the galaxy has the capacity for evil, Mr. Vorthak, but every species also has the capacity for good. Humans choose to focus on the good. We choose to believe that people can change, that justice can prevail, that tomorrow can be better than today. Even for someone like me, especially for someone like you, you've spent 30 years being the galaxy's most feared assassin. Imagine what you could accomplish if you spent the next 30 years being something else. Krell looked out the window at the swirling storms of the gas giant below. Somewhere out there, children were dying in mining camps, while their killers counted profits. Somewhere out there, families were being destroyed the way his had been destroyed. He thought about the beach house on Zephyria, the peaceful retirement he had planned. He could still have that life if he wanted it. All he had to do was kill one more human and walk away. But he also thought about Nam So Young teaching the Krillian warrior, about Li Min Ho bringing ancient enemies together, about all the small acts of connection and understanding he had witnessed on this station. Krell made his choice. He pressed the button on the communicator. "This is Krell Vorthak," he said. "I'm ready to testify." 6 months later, Krell stood in the largest courtroom in the galaxy. The Galactic Tribunal on Central Station was a massive chamber that could hold representatives from every known species. Today, it was packed with beings from across the known worlds, all watching the trial that would determine the fate of the Tellurian Mining Consortium. Krell wore a simple black suit instead of his usual armor. He looked different, calmer, more at peace with himself. The yellow fire in his eyes had softened to a warm glow. At the prosecution table sat Park Dong-min and a team of human lawyers. They had spent months preparing their case, gathering evidence, interviewing witnesses. The files they had compiled filled an entire data storage unit. At the defense table sat the executives of the mining consortium. Vorgek Talion, the current CEO, was a fat Tellurian with expensive jewelry and nervous eyes. Beside him sat his lawyers, some of the most expensive legal minds money could buy. In the witness stand, Krell faced the panel of judges, representatives, from 12 different worlds, chosen for their reputation for fairness and wisdom. "State your name for the record," said Judge Cathara Voss, a tall, elegant Altarian with deep blue skin. "Krell Thorian Vorthak Mal," Krell said, "also known as Krell Vorthak, also known as the Silent Death." A murmur went through the courtroom. Even here, surrounded by guards and legal protections, his reputation preceded him. "Mr. Vorthak Mal," said the prosecutor, a human woman named Im Young-suk, "please tell the court about your relationship with the Tellurian Mining Consortium." Krell took a deep breath. For 6 months, he had been preparing for this moment. "For 30 years, I worked as an assassin. I killed people for money. During that time, I eliminated 47 individuals who were either direct employees of the consortium or people who threatened their interests. Were you aware that you were working for the consortium? No. They used intermediaries and false contracts. I thought I was working for different clients with different reasons for wanting their targets dead." Im Young-suk activated a holographic display that showed the web of connections between Krell's contracts and the mining consortium. "Can you explain this network?" The consortium would identify someone they wanted eliminated, usually an investigator, a witness, or a government official who was interfering with their operations. Then they would find someone with a legitimate grievance against that person and help them contact me. Krell pointed to specific connections on the display. "Here they arranged for the widow of a mining accident victim to hire me to kill the safety inspector who had covered up the incident. Here they helped the father of a murdered child contact me to eliminate the corrupt police chief who had let the killer go free. So some of your targets were actually guilty of crimes?" "Many of them were. That's what made the system so effective. I thought I was serving justice, when really I was serving the consortium's interests. Sometimes those interests aligned with justice, sometimes they didn't. The defense lawyer, a sharp-faced Zephyrian named Kelator Vex, stood up. Objection. The witness is speculating about his client's motivations. Sustained, Judge Voss said. Mr. Vorthakmal, please stick to facts you know personally. Im Young-suk nodded. Let's talk about specific cases. Do you recognize this man? A new image appeared. Baek Hyun-woo, the Tellurian who had hired Krell to kill Park Dong-min. Yes. He contracted me to eliminate Park Dong-min 6 months ago. What? Were you told about the target? That he was a human scientist who had discovered something dangerous, that he needed to be eliminated quickly and quietly. What did you discover when you attempted to carry out this contract? Krell looked across the courtroom at Park Dong-min, who nodded encouragingly. I discovered that humans are not what they appear to be. I learned that Park Dong-min had uncovered evidence of the consortium's slave labor operations, and that Hyun-woo wanted him killed to prevent that evidence from becoming public. How do you know this? Because Park Dong-min showed me the evidence. Detailed records of forced labor camps, financial documents proving the consortium's involvement, communication records between consortium executives discussing the elimination of witnesses. Im Young-suk brought up more displays showing the evidence that had convinced Krell to change sides. The images were horrific. Children working in dangerous conditions, mass graves, internal memos discussing acceptable casualty rates. Did you complete your contract to kill Park Dong-min? No. When I learned the truth about what the consortium was doing, I chose to cooperate with the investigation instead, even though this meant giving up a substantial payment? Even though it meant giving up everything I thought I wanted, Krell said. The payment was large enough for me to retire comfortably, but I couldn't take money earned by helping people who enslave children. The defense lawyer stood again. Mr. Vorthakmal, isn't it true that you were captured by human security forces and coerced into cooperating? No. The humans never threatened me or forced me to do anything. They showed me evidence and asked me to make a choice. But they did prevent you from leaving their station. They delayed my departure while they presented their case, but the choice to cooperate was mine. A choice made under duress. A choice made with full information, Krell corrected. For the first time in my adult life, I knew exactly what I was choosing and why. The testimony continued for 3 days. Krell described contract after contract, explaining how the consortium had manipulated him into eliminating their enemies. Other witnesses testified about the slave labor camps, the cover-ups, the murders. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records proved the consortium's involvement in every crime they were accused of. Communication intercepts showed executives discussing the elimination of witnesses. Physical evidence from the labor camps proved the extent of their atrocities. On the final day of testimony, CEO Vorgek Talion took the stand in his own defense. These allegations are completely false, he said, his voice squeaking with nerves. The consortium operates legitimate mining operations throughout the galaxy. We follow all applicable labor laws. Im Young-suk stood to cross-examine him. Mr. Talion, do you recognize this document? She displayed an internal memo with Talion's name on it, discussing cost reduction through worker optimization. I've never seen that before, Talion lied. This memo was found on your personal computer. It's authenticated with your biometric signature. It must be a forgery. Mr. Talion, are you familiar with mining station Zerion 7? We have many mining operations. I can't remember them all. This is a station where your company uses forced labor. Children as young as 8 years old work 16-hour shifts in dangerous conditions. Absolutely not. We would never. Mr. Vorthakmal, would you please stand? Krell rose from his seat in the gallery. Every eye in the courtroom turned to look at the massive assassin. Mr. Talion, Im Young-suk continued. Do you see that man? For 30 years, your company used him to eliminate people who threatened your operations. He killed 47 people on your behalf. Talion's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. That man could kill you right now, in this courtroom, in front of all these witnesses, and there would be nothing anyone could do to stop him. Do you know why he doesn't? Because he chose to be better than you are. He chose justice over money, truth over lies, protection over destruction. Im Young-suk turned to address the entire courtroom. The consortium turned the galaxy's most dangerous killer into an instrument of justice without his knowledge. They perverted his desire to protect the innocent and used it to serve their greed. But when Krell Vorthakmal learned the truth, he made a different choice. He chose to stand with the victims instead of the victimizers. He chose to protect the innocent instead of serving the powerful. The judges deliberated for 2 hours. When they returned, Judge Voss read the verdict in a clear, strong voice. On all charges of murder, slavery, conspiracy, and crimes against sentient beings, we find the defendants guilty. The sentences were severe. Vorgek Talion and his top executives received life imprisonment. The consortium's assets were seized and used to compensate the families of their victims. The slave labor camps were shut down immediately, and the workers were freed. After the trial, Krell found himself standing outside the courthouse with Park Dong-min and Han Ji-won. "So what happens now?" Krell asked. "Now the real work begins," Park Dong-min said. "The consortium is finished, but there are other criminal organizations out there. Other people who need protection. Other injustices that need to be addressed." Han Ji-won handed Krell a small badge. It was simple and elegant, with Earth's blue marble and the words Galactic Diplomatic Protection Service inscribed in multiple languages. "We're expanding our protection services," she explained. "We need people with your skills, but for a different purpose. Instead of eliminating threats, you would neutralize them. Instead of killing criminals, you would capture them for justice." Krell looked at the badge, feeling its weight. It was much lighter than his old weapons, but somehow it felt more substantial. "The galaxy's most feared assassin is retiring today," Park Dong-min said. "But the galaxy's most effective protector could start his career right now." "What would I be protecting?" Krell asked. "Everything worth protecting," Han